I used to believe that if I explained myself better, my husband would finally understand me. Instead, every conversation ended the same way. You're too sensitive. It didn't matter if I was hurt, disappointed, or simply asking for respect. Those 4 words became the answer to everything. My name is Rachel. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and for 8 years, I believed I was the problem. Whenever Mark forgot an important date, I was too sensitive. Whenever he interrupted me in front of friends, I was too sensitive. Whenever he made jokes about me that everyone laughed at except me, I was too sensitive. At first, I defended myself. I just want you to hear me. I don't think that's funny. That really hurt, but every explanation became another reason for him to smile and shake his head. See, you're proving my point. Eventually, I stopped talking, not because I agreed with him, because I was exhausted. Our friends thought we were the perfect couple. We hosted barbecues every summer. We smiled in family photos. We posted vacation pictures online. No one saw what happened after everyone went home. If I told him something bothered me, he rolled his eyes. If you weren't so emotional, we'd never argue. I started questioning my own memory. Maybe I really was overreacting. Maybe every marriage looked like this. One evening, my younger sister Emma came to visit. She watched Mark interrupt me 3 different times during dinner. When I tried to finish a sentence, he laughed. Rachel tells stories with way too many details. Everyone chuckled. I forced a smile. After he walked outside to answer a phone call, Emma quietly asked me, "Does he always do that?" I answered automatically, "He doesn't mean anything by it." She looked at me for a long moment. I didn't ask if he meant it. I asked if he always does it. That question stayed with me. For the first time, I noticed the pattern instead of the excuses. He corrected me. He dismissed me. He joked about me. Then he told me I was too sensitive for noticing. Weeks later, we attended a neighborhood cookout. One of our neighbors, Lisa, was talking about returning to college. Before I could congratulate her, Mark interrupted. Rachel wanted to go back to school once, but she probably changed her mind after the first week. Everyone laughed politely. I didn't. Normally, I would have smiled to avoid making things awkward. Instead, I simply looked at him. Then, I looked back at Lisa. "I think that's wonderful," I said. "You should absolutely do it." And I continued the conversation as if his comment had never happened. On the drive home, Mark frowned. "You embarrass me." I looked out the window. I didn't. "You ignored my joke." It wasn't funny to me. He sighed dramatically. "Here we go again. You're too sensitive." This time, I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I simply said, "Okay," that single word confused him. The next morning, he waited for another discussion. There wasn't one. He made another sarcastic comment over breakfast. I continued drinking my coffee. He asked why I was so quiet. I have nothing to add. For the first time in years, I stopped trying to convince him that my feelings were real. Instead, I trusted that they already were. Over the next month, something interesting happened. Without my reactions, his comments became impossible to hide. When he interrupted me at dinner with friends, I calmly waited until he finished. Then I continued exactly where I had stopped. No anger, no argument, just quiet confidence. People started noticing. One friend actually said, "Rachel, I want to hear what you were saying." Another added, "Yeah, Mark cuts you off a lot." The room became strangely quiet. Mark laughed awkwardly. I was just kidding. Nobody laughed with him. That evening he asked, "Did you tell them to say that?" I honestly answered, "No, he didn't believe me." A few days later, we visited his parents. His mother asked about my work. Before I could answer, Mark said, "Rachel's job keeps her busy pretending she's the boss." Usually everyone would laugh, This time, his father looked directly at him. "Son, let her answer." I noticed something I hadn't expected. No one had suddenly changed. They had simply never been given the chance to notice. For years, I had covered every uncomfortable moment with nervous laughter, quick explanations, and excuses for him. Now, I wasn't covering anything. I wasn't exposing him. I was simply refusing to hide the truth. A week later, Mark came home unusually quiet. He placed his keys on the kitchen counter and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen before. Then he asked a question that made my heart race. "When did everyone start taking your side?" I looked at him for a few seconds before answering. "They're not taking my side." He frowned. "It feels like they are." I shook my head. "They're seeing what's been there all along." He didn't respond. For the first time in years, there wasn't an argument waiting for me. There was only silence. The next few weeks were uncomfortable. Mark still made small jokes, but fewer than before. When he interrupted me, I calmly continued speaking after he finished. When he dismissed my opinion, I didn't chase his approval. I simply trusted my own voice. Something changed inside me. I realized boundaries are not speeches. They are actions. I no longer apologized for having feelings. I no longer explained why respect mattered. Respect doesn't need a debate. One Saturday, we met friends for brunch. Our friend Megan asked about a volunteer project I had been leading. Before Mark could answer for me, I smiled. "I'd love to tell you about it." Then I spoke. He stayed quiet. After brunch, Megan hugged me goodbye. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. I smiled without asking what she meant. I already knew. Months earlier, I would have begged Mark to understand me. Now I understood myself. That evening, he surprised me. "I've been thinking." I waited. "You haven't changed who you are." "No," I said softly. "I've stopped pretending I'm someone else." He looked down at the floor. "I didn't realize how often I made jokes at your expense. I appreciated his honesty, but I also knew something important. An apology means very little without change." "I hope you keep thinking about it," I said. The following weeks became a test. Slowly, I noticed differences. He stopped interrupting as often. When he slipped into old habits, he caught himself. Sometimes he even apologized before I said anything. Not because I demanded it, because he had finally noticed it himself. One evening, we were having dinner with his parents again. His mother asked about my promotion. Before I answered, Mark smiled. "Rachel worked incredibly hard for it. I'm really proud of her." I looked at him, surprised. It wasn't a performance. It was simple, respectful, real. Later that night, he admitted something that stayed with me. "I used to think if you stopped reacting, it meant you agreed with me." I smiled gently. I stopped reacting because I finally agreed with myself. That sentence changed everything. Whether our marriage continued or ended, I knew one thing would never change again. My voice mattered. My feelings mattered. And my boundaries were not something I needed permission to have. People often think strength is loud. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes strength is refusing to argue with someone determined to misunderstand you. Sometimes strength is letting your actions speak where your explanations never could. Today our marriage is healthier than it was, not because I won an argument, but because I stopped trying to prove that my feelings deserved respect. They always did, and so did I. If this story touched you, please comment and subscribe. I have one question for you. Have you ever stayed silent long enough for someone to finally see the truth on their own? Let me know your answer below.